Hi guys, it's Luetin and Levelcap here with another episode of On the Level. Now today we're going to be talking about, obviously, Armoured Kill. We're going to be having a look at all the aspects of it, our own thoughts and opinions, whether we agree or disagree, and also we're probably going to be having a look at the PC and the console, how they stack up differently against the game. So first off, I'm going to go over to Level. I'm just going to hear your sort of first thoughts about Armoured Kill, how you've got on with it, and, you know, a whole roundup of the DLC.
All right, so Armored Kill, loving the visuals of it. I think the level designers are probably some of the most talented employees at DICE. They just know their stuff. They know how to make maps that look real, that look just so epic, you know, especially in Bondar Desert. You're standing out there in the middle of the desert and you got this beautiful sunset. Everything just looks amazing. And inside of each map, there's different environments. You've got sort of the little suburbia in Bondar Desert, then you've got a giant desert, then you've got construction sites. You just have so much variety within each map, and Albor's Mountain 2 is probably one of the best looking maps. Now, in terms of how it actually plays out, I was most looking forward to the Conquest gameplay because that's traditional Battlefield. The review said we're going to get back to traditional Battlefield, all this kind of stuff. And in a lot of ways, I think they did get back to traditional Battlefield, like Battlefield 1942. And if anybody actually remembers Battlefield 1942, you spend forever running anywhere and you need a vehicle, otherwise you're screwed. And I find that happens a lot in some of these Armored Kill maps now on Conquest, is if you don't have a vehicle, you just run into a tank out on the open fields and that's it. You're done for.
Yeah.
And the Conquest game mode I find to be one of the most disappointing game modes so far, but I am really enjoying Team Deathmatch. I think that's a incredibly well balanced. The spawn systems actually work well in that. Rush is fun if you're on the attacking side, not fun if you're on the defending side. And yeah, those are the three game modes I've played. I'm actually enjoying the helicopters. Everybody was like, oh no, the helicopters are getting mega nerfed, but we've managed to adapt to the new styles, and they're really fun to fly in the new maps, especially the scout helicopter too, if you just want to have a little bit of solo fun.
Yeah.
The AC-130 is a very debatable topic, and we'll get into that in a sec, but what are your opinions?
Well, overall, I do think it was a really good DLC. I think it's quite exciting. I like, you know, the whole change of environment, the change of pace and the change of scale that it brings in, and a lot of the new equipment as well. You've got stuff like the artillery, you've got stuff like the AC-130, and I think it plays out really, really well. I would agree that Conquest it doesn't really handle so well, and I don't think it ever was going to handle so well on console anyway, because of the fact that the maps are so big and the amount of players we have is so small. Rush, I think, works a lot better. I think Rush plays out just as well as it does with anything else for the console players, and it works really, really well. Unfortunately, as you say as well, the attackers just often get so much equipment, so many vehicles, and plus the AC at their disposal, it can obviously make those rounds a little bit more dangerous and a bit harder for the defenders to play out. But overall, I do think that they've designed the maps fantastically. I think the environment that you have feels so rich, and the dynamics of it. I think the scale of it all, the colours, the trees. One thing I love about, like for example in Alborz, is just the trees. When those trees, I was running along and the trees come crashing down, and yeah, it really feels so good. And I was just running as an infantry. I was running up to the first base there. We suddenly started to take loads of fire coming across us, rockets and everything. And I think there was one of the jets, and he had rocket pods. And all of a sudden I had like multiple trees coming crashing down on me, explosions everywhere, and just, yeah, the scale of that destructive environment feels fantastic. I also like the way a lot of the Rush maps have been designed in terms of progression, the way you move through, and some of the dynamic things, like for example crossing the highway on Bandar, getting across that bridge or flanking around. It's got a really nice dynamic to it there. So yeah, for me overall I think it's really great. However, as we'll get into, I do think it has specific issues, and I wonder as well whether the issues that arise come from the fact that they're trying to balance across multiple systems. I mean, it's been an issue with other things before, and it could potentially be an issue with this as well. But as my review that I did, I gave it 7 out of 10. So I think it's been it's a fun DLC for people that enjoy vehicle gameplay. I think it's there. It's got everything that you need. But I think it does have issues, as we'll have a look at now. So should we start off by talking about the AC-130, seeing as that is one of the major issues? What's your first sort of thought about that?
Well, everybody was looking forward to the AC-130 the most. I think that's what they sort of It's always in the trailer. Everybody's looking for it, and this guy's like, "Look, there's the AC-130." You know, those trailer breakdowns before the game came out. Everybody was super excited about the AC-130 because it really is such a cool plane. Like, I mean, a giant flying artillery platform. What could make anybody happier? Well, I think it's mostly a marketing thing because in terms of game balance, I think it really is just an unfun mechanic to have in the game. If you're on the receiving end, you're setting up on, say, a rush map or a conquest map. You're running across a field in conquest. You just get blown up randomly by an artillery shell. That's not fun. Or if you're in rush, you're setting up to try and defend this big onslaught of the U.S. team attacking you. You're behind some wall. You've got good cover. You've got your little sniper perch or whatever, and all of a sudden a giant artillery shell just comes raining down from the sky.
Yeah.
In the beginning of, I was playing yesterday, and I made a point of just not spawning anywhere except the AC-130, just waiting for it to respawn every time. I won 101 and 18. And I was like over double the kills of anybody else on the
Did
team.
nobody shoot you down? How is that possible?
Well, I was actually had the best luck when I was the only one in it because you could alternate between the seats deploying flares and keep it up for quite a bit of time. But I would go on like 15 kill streaks every time I got in it, and it would be, you know, the best players on the team. They'd be mounting defenses. It's like, oh, I know that guy. He's a really good player, and I just blow him up with a giant artillery shell.
Yeah.
Everybody on the defense is just not having fun and being on the defending side, just getting blown up over and over and over in the spawn point. Just it hasn't been a fun experience overall, and I think games should be designed to maximize the fun for everyone, not just the one asshole in the AC-130.
Well, I mean, I've had my own specific issues with it. I mean, there was a video I posted just the other day where I was defending on Bandar, and I went for a defuse of an MCOM, and I was inside. It's the third base in the, you know, the military base there, and I was inside the metal shack, you know, the A target there. And I got it diffused, but I still took 5. Even though I was inside that building, I took 5 from the AC-130, and I got killed. And a lot of people posted on my video, "How the hell did you get killed, Luetin? You were inside the building." And I said, "Yeah, well, there you go." But
that's happened to me too. I think it like doesn't shield or something from the blast. I've been
so
right
powerful,
inside there,
it just goes through everything.
Cover. Yeah.
But you know, the other thing is, it can be taken down very quickly. That's the other thing. It's so powerful, but it can be destroyed very, very fast. And there's a guy who regularly plays on my server. He's an amazing jet pilot, and he was able to suppress the enemy jet and keep the AC-130 down nearly constantly through the entire game. They would never had it up for more than about 5 seconds. He would just keep it down all the time, and it meant that as a team, we had a much better round defending, and we managed to be successful. But it just shows that it's so imbalanced when it requires someone of that skill level to be playing in order to be successful, or you have someone like myself who is prepared to actually take an Igloo or Stinger and, you know, constantly keep it down and just spend their time doing that. And as guys have said, it seems unfair that as defenders you have to dedicate someone to doing that all the time. Personally, the way I kind of came to terms with it was I just thought to myself, well, you know, it's like playing Rush, but just a harder difficulty of Rush, and, you know, therefore it's kind of more of a challenge for the defenders. That's the way I've tried to rationalize it, so I don't end up crying after every single game I play. But I actually thought it was, you know, I don't think it's a totally terrible device. I do agree with you, though, that I think it is a bit of a marketing ploy. It's like, we've got an AC-130, and everyone's like, yay! But and people want to have the fun of getting into it, and it is fun when you're in it, but like you say, it sucks that only one person gets to have that amount of fun. But I did think that you could potentially make some little tweaks to the mechanics.
I think it works a little bit better in Conquest. I don't think it's particularly balanced, but I think compared to Rush, I think it works better in Conquest, because in Rush everybody's just grouped up, so it's like one artillery shell, I've gotten 5 kills off of it before, and even in Rush everybody spawns with those stingers. Well, you deploy your flares right away, you can still get 5 to 10 kills before the next volley of stingers comes your way. And if you have an organized AC-130 team, you can keep it up long enough to kill like 10, 20 of those stinger guys at the same time. Where in Conquest, you just don't know where people are going to be. You've got the anti-air tank, you've got helicopters, you've got a billion more things that can take you out, and you don't know where it's going to be.
It's true. And of course you always have the problem of when you take the Stinger or whatever, or the Igloo, you'd be shooting down the AC-130 1 minute, you turn around and there's a tank or an M128 there staring in the face, so you can't ever win. But yeah, that's one thing I have been...
Or a guy parachuting out on top of your head.
Yes, that as well. I mean, but that is something I've been saying to my guys is, you know, if you're playing Rush, you're defending, I keep saying spread out, don't bunch together. It pisses me off when there's like 4 or 5 people sitting on top of each other, and I look up and bam, 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 they all get killed in a big group, and it's just like, oh, come on, use your head, just spread out a bit. But it started me to thinking, okay, how could we make it better? And one thing that I thought was like, well, why don't they allow the AC-130 only perhaps for maybe the first 2 bases of Rush? I mean, like you say, for Conquest, okay, I think it's fine for Conquest. I think it's balanced because, like you say, it's spread out, it works in slightly different, and there's more that can take it out. So I don't think I really need to focus on talking about that. But yeah, as people say, within Rush, it really does screw it. But I thought, why not have it for like the first and second bases only? Just have it as kind of like a first strike weapon, because often think about many games of Rush, that first base can be pretty hard to overcome sometimes, you know, because often they have a little bit further to come in, or the first base is not that easy to overcome. And I thought, yeah, for like the first and second bases, the AC-130 could be up and it can help them push through, and then when you get to the third and fourth bases, maybe it just doesn't appear then, and they actually have to use their own skills to overcome the final bases.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. I think that would really balance it out more. Yeah. And another thing that I thought, just in addition to this, and I think you'd agree, is that what if you got rid of the A10 for the attacking team, at least for a little while? Because I was thinking, because you got the one airplane up, and he's got to deal with the AC-130 and everything else, and then he's also got a plane on him, in addition to the AC-130, which is a traveling anti-air platform as well. So it's like, all right, get rid of the A-10, at least for the bases where you're going to have the AC-130. You know, give it some sort of vehicle balance on there.
I like that a lot as well, because I think that would be interesting, because it would change the dynamic of the aircraft as well, because it would mean that the Frogfoot would be able to focus on, you know, attacking vehicles on the ground as well, and that would also help out the balance of the fact that the attackers often get a lot more vehicles. They often have, you know, the artillery, the you know, tank destroyers, normal tanks, whatever. They often have a lot more ground vehicles attacking. So it would mean he could focus on the AC and then turn his attention to ground vehicles at the same time. So it would make the whole game a lot more sort of, you know, interesting in terms of those kind of dynamics of air to ground combat and stuff like that. I think that would be really interesting as well. My only other thought that I had about it was, I thought, well, why not make it so that, you know, when the attackers get down to 20 tickets left, that's when the AC comes up to sort of try and save them. You know, when they start getting low on tickets, it comes in as like a sort of last resort to try and help them win the round. The only thing that I thought could suck with that would be that if people got the hang of using the AC-130 to kind of clear out the base, and they would literally allow their tickets to drop down so that they could then use it just to push through each base. But I don't know whether that would really happen in reality. But that was just that was another thought that I had.
Yeah, I like your ideas. I think they're great. There's actually a lot you could do. You could even disable paradropping in Rush, because that was just a huge headache as a defender. You know, you're watching the skies, and then you take your eyes off the skies to defend a push coming on the ground. All of a sudden, some guy parachutes in behind you, kills 4 people, gets taken out, but he still did enough damage to really, you know, it's just unpredictability. It sort of gets rid of the fronts in the game and just turns it into kind of chaos for the defenders.
I think the power dropping is another issue as well, and I think that could be dealt with in a couple of ways as well. Some people have said, well, maybe it should be that, you know, whoever is in the AC-130, only members of their squad can power drop out. I think that would help. The other thing that I thought was, again with Rush, I think again with Conquest it's not such a big issue, because you've got a bigger map, more people, so that more people for PC anyway. But yeah, you're more kind of spread out. But with Rush, a lot of people complain that literally the base opens up, a ton of people power drop out, they're waiting for it, and all of a sudden you've got like 6-7 people behind the base before you've barely even begun it. I think the way you can get around that is, as I say, have the squad only able to jump out, or put a kind of time delay for the power drop when a new base begins. So maybe they have to wait 2 or 3 minutes before the power drop actually becomes available, so that you can't just start a new base and everyone jumps out straight away. I think that would, you know, solve that pretty much straight away. Okay, so next we're going to talk a little bit about our favourite game modes within the Armoured Kill DLC and why that is. So I'll let Level start off with this. What's your favourite ones?
All right. Well, I've got two things that I currently really like doing. One is flying helicopters on the new Armor Kill maps. You know, a big 64-player game. There's usually enough going on in the air to distract people from exclusively focusing on helicopters now. Before, it was like the attack helicopter was the major air threat. So
Yeah.
everybody was focused on taking that down. All the jets were always coming after you. But now you got AC-130s, you got tons of stuff on the ground that can shoot you down. You got all these other things that jet pilots might have to worry about, or people with stingers are focusing on instead of you. So I find that even though the choppers got a little bit of a nerf with the gunners losing their ability to deploy flares, you are just being focused on a little bit less. And I've been having a lot of fun just playing solo as a little bird pilot, scooting around some of the dark maps on Death Valley, flying under bridges, taking out infantry and getting out of the area. I've been having a lot of fun with that. And then I've also really been enjoying Team Deathmatch, which is funny because Team Deathmatch was like not even on the board in terms of some of the features they were implementing in Armored Kill. I mean, obviously everybody knew it was going to be there, but I think the maps in TDM are possibly some of the most fun Team Deathmatch maps that I've played so far. They even work with 64 players, which sounds absolutely insane, but in Operation Armored Shield, you're in this small little town by the river and everything is destructible. So all of a sudden you got a TDM game where it's viable to play the engineer or support class and just blow up walls and buildings and work your way through this town. And the spawn systems work out where you actually feel like you feel the team part of Team Deathmatch, where you're on one side of the town with your team and the other team's on the other side of the town. You're trying to work up through little alleys and make it across and switch sides of the map or flank around and get everybody from behind. And it really just feels so much more team oriented. There's a lot of action. It's really fun, fast paced, and you're not just playing a game of No Shark Canals where you're moving forward and some guy spawns right behind you and kills you. You know, you don't have that as much, and it just works.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it's obviously going to be Rush. I prefer Rush overall, even when you're defending. It can be a little bit destructive depending on how your team is playing. But because on my server, for the most part, I can often count on people because they know that coming to my server means playing the objective. So for the most part, I find that I have a few regular people that turn up and they focus on the AC. So for rush play, it's generally relatively capable at defense or attack. It can work out pretty well, and rush is always going to be the one to favor with console play, simply because of the numbers, unfortunately. With conquest, it can be good, it can be exciting, but I wouldn't say it was my favourite one. It has elements that work kind of well, but it's definitely Rush for me for the Armored Kill DLC. But I would like to say as well that I totally agree about Team Deathmatch. It's kind of interesting. A lot of people said that it was more objective. I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but I do think that the maps do lend themselves the way that they've cropped the maps in for the Team Deathmatch games. I think they work really well for that. A lot of different levels and viewpoints for people to get onto. I guess my only criticism of the Team Deathmatch maps is on the Death Valley one. That tower is turning into a little bit of a sniper hotel. I regularly am seeing 5 or 6 guys up there just picking people off, and it gets a little bit tedious when they have like 3 or 4 recon respawn points up there and they end up with, you know, a couple of squads up there or something. That can get a bit irritating, but the other maps are really good. We're going to talk next a little bit about PC and console and the various differences between and how we feel it kind of stacks up or whatever. The first thing I want to actually say about is the Armoured Shield map. Now, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but with the console, and if you look at gameplay you might see it, the Armoured Shield for the consoles, it really looks quite different in terms of graphics, and the sort of frame rate it plays out. It doesn't play very well. I don't know what it is that they've done, but if you look at some of my gameplay or something, if you see the Armoured Shield map, it really, I've been in it on different servers, and every time I'm in it, it's laggy, the frame rate is horrible, and I often struggle to play. It seems very fuzzy and not good. Now, I know that people are going to just flame on me and say, well, that's just what consoles look like on every map. But it really does. There's something not quite right about Armoured Shield, and it really does look kind of different, and it ruins the gameplay for me. And I think it's a bit of a shame because, like you say, Team Deathmatch, I think it is probably the best map. for Team Deathmatch. But I tried to place him on that the other day, and I didn't have a good time on it.
That's really unfortunate, because it runs great on the PC, and I'm not saying, oh, PC, but you know, when Back to Karkin came out, that had some terrible frame rates on the PC. It just played really bad, like Gulf of Oman. That map just killed everybody's computer. You know, you'd be getting like 90 frames on Metro. Go to Gulf of Oman, and you're getting like 30 frames in some of the city areas. And that's really unfortunate that it doesn't seem to be as well optimized for the console. I have to say, on the PC side of things, the frame rate really does seem to be quite nice for the majority of the maps.
I'd be interested to hear, guys, if anyone's had experience with that as well, because I really can tell. I might make a little video about it to compare and just show people what I'm talking about. But for example, Alborz, it's fine. Death Valley, it's fine. And also Bandai, it's fine. It's clean, crisp gameplay. It works very smooth, very fast. But whenever I go onto Armored Shield on Conquest, Team Deathmatch, or Rush, it is terrible. I think it contributes to why, as I originally said, like the first day when I had the gameplay, and then I came back with some thoughts about it to people, and I said, yeah, really excellent pack, but the Armored Shield map, I'm really not feeling it. I think it was that which contributed to it. I think Armored Shield as well. Let me just talk a bit about Armored Shield, because it is my one little thing. How do you feel the Rush plays out on it, if you played a lot of Rush on it? Because a lot of people have kind of criticized for how much the attackers have on Armored Shield, and also a lot of the points which you have to move forward are very, very close to the bases. It seems a not so well designed Rush map, to be honest.
I've only played 1 or 2 rounds of Rush on Armored Shield. I didn't enjoy it. I think Armored Shield is basically a conquest map and a tank superiority map. But yeah, it's kind of what we were talking about earlier, where they sort of give each side equal vehicles, but then the attackers also get the AC-130. And since Armored Shield is so open for most of the map, you really just, it's very, very bad for the defending team, because that's where the AC-130 and the air vehicles excel, and tanks excel is just these big open environments. So it sucks for infantry, which is what a lot of the defenders end up doing. And if you can paradrop from the AC-130 into the areas where the beacons are, and you don't have to run across those big fields and get mowed down by everybody sniping and waiting for you to come, then that's a massive, massive advantage. It's probably one of my least fun Rush maps that I play. I really like Bondar Desert and Death Valley. I think those ones work out well for Rush. Yeah,
definitely. And when it comes to Conquest, again, the comparison there, I think it's pretty much what we've said, and it's pretty much what I said before it was even released, and I've said for ages as well. Conquest on the console, it can work on specific maps, but when you have these large open maps, it just doesn't really work that well. Now, people are going to say I'm contradicting myself, because I made a video the other day saying that I like the fact that there is an amount of space and you get a different style of gameplay. What I said was that there was a great clip I showed of me and one of my teammates, and we were going to assault a conquest base, and there was only a couple of us, and we were actually running, we didn't have a vehicle. And I said I like the fact that you have this kind of infantry, you're crossing open space, you get to the base, and then you have to clear out anyone who spawns or attack it. And it's true, I do still like that. I like the fact that you have a different style of gameplay there, as opposed to bases which have got a, say, like a tighter nucleus, and you all end up fighting around that base, and that can be really, really intense. So I actually like the fact that with console you can have these quiet sort of sections where there's maybe not much going on and you have to cross over. But it doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that overall I just think that you need a few more players to make it work, because as people highlighted, you can have fewer players with PC as well, and it's not so good to always be in those quiet situations. And also something else that was said was that it's great, to have these exciting runs where you run from one base to the next and you feel like you're sort of on the attack or whatever, but when you get there, if there's nobody there, it's not very exciting. You sort of get there, cap the base, and then run off, and you haven't really done anything, and meanwhile they're all somewhere else on the map. It can just feel a little bit too dispersed.
The problem is that the new maps, the 4 maps, they all look gorgeous. They're huge, they're massive, so the travel distance between each capture point is 1.5 times or 2 times what it is in previous conquest maps like Caspian. Everybody thought of Caspian as this giant sprawled out map. Well, if you run between some of the middle points there as infantry, you can get around pretty fast. You can move from one point to the next, where in these new armored kill maps, you got to have a Jeep, you got to have an ATV, you got to have a helicopter, a tank, something to get you between those 2 points. And I can only imagine on console, especially with 32 players, having that much more area to cover. It's really just it sounds like it's gonna be very unintense in terms of action.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit, I guess, about tank superiority, because we haven't really mentioned that, and I saw a couple of your videos about that, which was really cool and interesting as well. I actually kind of like it as a game mode, but I do think it works better on some maps than others. I'm going to say as well that this works really well for console, because unlike Conquest, where you have lots of bases around the map, with tank superiority, I think it plays out very similar to the PC, because you actually have, you know, a focal point for everyone to get onto, which is quite similar to Rush in a way, where you have the defenders and the attackers all focusing on one point. So tank superiority, for the most part, is actually kind of exciting. And you also have the benefit that you can still have infantry. You don't always have to have everyone in a tank, because you can have people set up with SOFLAMs, javelins, or whatever they want to take. So it can work really, really well. And I think it's one of the game modes that balances up better between different systems. I also like the fact that people can start to use different pieces of equipment with the vehicles. Like, a lot of people have been saying smoke is the only choice. I actually made a video talking about the optics, and it was funny because then I saw that you had mentioned specifically about the optics as well. And you know, I made a video saying to people, try different combinations of your kit with the vehicles, because it gets very boring when everyone's just like smoke, 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 smoke. And, you know, people are letting themselves down. They're missing opportunities that they could be using other things. And I remember from Bad Company 2 taking optics. It was my default choice. And it means that you can sit far away and you can snipe and you can hit targets. And you know, I've got few clips and things where we were doing exactly that, and I saw the same thing from your stuff. It was the same thing. I mean, you can hit a target twice and they are struggling to find where they're being hit from, you know. And if you're accurate and you can hit a couple of targets in succession while they're on the move, you can disable them, and then they're panicked, they don't know whether to get out or not, they're trying to find you, and then that's when you finish them off. So it can be a really good piece of kit to take. Yeah,
no, I like Armored Kill, and I think what you're saying with the different loadouts and stuff for the vehicles becomes much more viable in Armored Kill, because depending on the map, you know, Bondar Desert is huge and wide and open. The flag's right in the middle of the desert, so nobody's going to sneak up on the flag. But then again, you can't just sit next to it and defend it, so you got to defend it from far away, where the optics becomes very useful. You can hit guys from very far away. You can line up your shots. You can mess around with different kit setups to try and make your tanks more effective in these ranges or those ranges or whatever it is. It's pretty fun, and I've been finding that Armored Kill is actually probably some of the most fun to play with one other person, where you team up in a tank, and if you have an organized tank team, you can be so much more effective. I actually really like almost everything about Armored Kill except for one major flaw, and I think this is a bug, but you can't spawn on squad mates. And that is just mind-numbingly painful, especially since the infantry aspect of the game is already so sort of imbalanced compared to being in a tank, you know? If you're in an infantry, you're versus like 10 tanks on the opposing team, so you really got to know your stuff, and if your squad mates can't spawn on you, that's just going to make it even harder, not to mention if somebody in your tank is the dedicated repairer, they pop out to repair your tank. They can't spawn on you after they get shot down. Now you got to go back to the deployment, pick them up. That's what I was doing the other day with a friend, you know, just driving all the way back to the deployment, getting him, coming back out into the action. I was like, why can't we spawn on squad mates? That doesn't seem to make sense for me. Maybe they implemented that to try and avoid base raping.
Possibly.
I'm not sure, but it really does seem like an anti-team tactic.
I'm not sure if I've seen this. I will double check on that, but as far as I can recall, you can. But maybe that's a difference between console PC. I'm not sure. But want to double check. Leave us your thoughts on that one as well, guys, if you've had the same problem or not. Okay, guys, so we're pretty much coming up to the end here now, and as always, we want to pose a little question to you to think about for, you know, commenting on our video. And today, what we were thinking was, with 3 DLCs now into Battlefield 3, and a few people have started looking around at other games. Quite a few producers have been looking at other games, things like PlanetSide and so on. And don't forget, we also have, you know, titles like Medal of Honor and Black Ops coming up. So there's some new things coming around. People are going to want to check out those games. So what we're really asking is, do you think Battlefield has got enough longevity in it? Do you think it's got enough left in it to keep people interested? We have 2 more DLCs to come. We've got Aftermath and Endgame. Are those exciting enough? Are you impressed enough from the DLCs that have been already to keep you in the game? This has been On The Level with Luetin and Levelcap, and we'll see you for some more very soon.